finding the right fit for you when it comes to applying to physical therapy school and actually making a decision on what school to go to is a really important thing, right? Because it determines a lot. It determines not only the next 3 years, but essentially like your career as a physical therapist. So in this video, I want to talk about a couple of things that I find to be the most important things to look out for in order to make the best decision. And so before I get into it, I want to introduce myself. I'm Janine, a physical therapist. I help future physical therapists get accepted into PT school. And I'm so happy that you're here with me today because this is a topic that I get a lot of questions on. And so with this topic, I find it to think about a couple of things. So we want to find the location, and with that considering the cost of living, how far it is from you, where you're living, do you have to relocate, all of those things. You want to talk about the quality of education that you're going to get at the school, the curriculum, the clinical experiences, all of that, the tuition of the school. And then how much credit does the school have in terms of, is it accredited by the CAPTE. And then, which means basically you can sit down and take a boards exam based on your education that you got here. And then also like what percent pass rate did the people that take the boards that went to this school, how many people from the class graduate and go on to get jobs, all of those things. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the location, right? And so a lot of people think that, so I want to say this first. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on going to the top ranked PT school in the nation, or, this and that, and you've heard the school is like the best school and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I want to stop you right there if you've heard this or you are thinking this, because if that's something that you really want, definitely by all means go for it. But at the same time, I want you to understand that as now a practicing physical therapist, in my experience, because I've been doing travel PT, and so I've had to apply to like many, many different jobs in the past year to 2 years. And not once has it really made a difference where I go to school. They just want to make sure you went to a school that's accredited, and that you passed your boards exam. And then they base off of whether they want to give you the job or not on your experiences, and your interview. And so don't think that you have to go to this top ranked school in the nation because of its reputation. No, if you want to go to one of those schools because you really love the curriculum or the way that they're, whatever the technology that they have or whatever it might be, then yes, maybe go for it. But I don't think that really needs to be there. That is that important. So with that being said, you want to think about the location. So do you want to live at home with your parents? Do you want to live close to your parents? Do you want to live far? Do you want to live somewhere that you can maybe stay with a relative? Do you want to live somewhere that is not, isn't like so high with a high cost of living to live there? Taking all those things into consideration and finding the best fit for you. So then the second thing off of that would be tuition. So the cost of tuition. Are you taking out loans? Are you paying for it? Like, how are you going about this? Is that an issue for you? Is that something that you want to how important is that for you? Is it maybe in the middle? Like, okay, I understand I might have loans. I don't want to go crazy, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. Maybe that's like the number one thing that you want to worry about. Or maybe you're not worried at all about that and you just rolling in it. But that's another thing to consider. And with that too is I want you to know that when you go to state schools, that might be a little bit cheaper than a private school. And also, I don't know too much about this, but you might want to look into, if you go to a private school, how their loan system works, because I know that I've worked with several PTs that had to take out a different type of loan because they went to a private school. So that's something to consider too. And so, you know, keeping all these things in mind, I want to now talk about the actual curriculum. So I say this a lot if you're on my page, in my TikTok, any of that, which, speaking of, definitely follow me on TikTok, Instagram, go to my website if you want any. I have online courses where you can access these at any point, at any time. I go over every single step that you need to know to do to get actually to apply to PT school, to stand out from other applicants, how to get accepted, improve your grades, improve your ability to study with less stress, all of that. If you go to my website, it's undergradgrowth.com. I also will put all of those links in the bio, in the description. So feel free to check those out. But if you hear me talk about the curriculum, what by that I mean most PT schools have the same curriculum overall, like they're going to cover the same courses, but sometimes they space out their curriculum where they put more of the clinical rotations where you actually go out and work as a PT, a student PT, with patients that you're hands-on with, working with them. Sometimes they put that more in the beginning, like they'll have a clinical rotation beginning of your second year. Sometimes they wait till you have more of the lecture material first, and then they send you on clinicals. So try to think about, what type of learner are you? Are you going to be someone that really learns more from experience first, and you might like that? You might like being put into the situation first and then going back and trying to take the lecture. Or maybe that freaks you out and you really need to be the lecture person first, and you need to sit in the lecture and learn about it before you go into the field. And so that's something that can vary between schools. So something you might want to consider. I don't think that's like the end all be all, but it's just another thing. And also on that topic is some schools actually don't let you pick where you're gonna do your clinical rotations. So sometimes they'll randomly decide for you. Some schools like to take that into consideration, especially if you're gonna be wanting a different types of settings. So example, the school I went to, we most of the people from my school my school was on Long Island. It's Stony Brook University on Long Island. And a lot of the kids in the class lived on Long Island. I did not. I grew up like north of the city, which was 2 hours away. So for me, I wanted to do a clinical rotation close to home so I could live at home for that and save some money. And so, that was one thing. But the kids that all lived on Long Island, they were kind of like competing for the same clinical rotations, because a school will have contracts with certain spots, right? And so from that, it's like what my school did is you put 3 choices. So you pick 3 and you rank them in order of first to last. And then they work it out, and they will help you figure out where to go. And they also were open to trying to make new connections with other places if that was really, an issue. And for the most part, there was required that you do at least 1 inpatient and 1 outpatient setting for your rotations. But other than that, the other 2, you could kind of have a choice. Maybe you really wanted to do a peds rotations. They listened to you and figured out what you want. So you want to maybe look for something like that. And that might be a good question to ask your schools when you're looking into applying or going on interviews. And so the next thing that I want to talk about is you can research these schools online and, go to their website, and they should have it posted. Their pass rate of the board's exam, the NPTE is what it's called, and you can look it up, and usually they'll say like 95% of the 2021 class passed it their first time, and 98% passed this, overall. And so that is definitely something to consider. You want to look for a school that has that 95 plus pass rate of the NPTE, because that means that school is preparing its students for that board's exam, right? And my school, like one of my professors actually wrote questions for it. So all of our tests were formatted in the way like that those questions would be formatted on the board's exam, which really helped. Just little things like that. You want to set yourself up for success. You don't want to go to a school that fails you and then you can't pass the board's exam. Then you can't be a PT. And also with that is it should say how many students graduated from that school, like what percentage of the starting class actually goes on to graduate, and then what percent actually goes on to get a job in physical therapy. So those are some important things to look for when trying to find the right school for you. And now, I know that's a lot of basics, but this is the most important thing that I would consider if I were you, if I put myself back in the shoes when I was looking into schools. You want to put yourself in a school that's an environment where you know that you're going to do well. You want to set yourself up for success. Don't put yourself in an environment, all of those things that I mentioned before, where you're going to be more stressed out. You're just going to be, it's just not a right fit, and it's a negative environment, because that's going to increase your chances of not doing very well and maybe just being so discouraged, and it's not a good thing. So you want to find the right vibe of the school. I think considering all those things that I mentioned before, and then also just like the atmosphere, it's hard to put this into words, but once you actually go and visit these schools and put yourself and you picture if you can see yourself there, and and this will become very clear to you which schools you vibe with and which schools you don't vibe with. So I think that is the most important thing, because like I said, at the end of the day, there really isn't, like, as long as you go to a school that has is accredited, it's going to have a good enough education to give you all those materials. It's really what you do with your experience there, and then moving forward, what is going to set you apart when it comes to actually getting jobs, right? And so I think putting yourself in that environment where you're going to do really well and thrive and succeed is just going to elevate all those other things where you're getting the most out of your experience. Your other things will just come into play and flow for you. And so I think that's the most important thing. And I would try to, don't get so stuck on that early on, because that's something, like I said, it might come a little bit later on as you're starting to look into and out of schools. And so, I think trying your best to also speak to people who went to those schools, talk, there was always an option to speak with someone on the team, and, even just going on your PT school interview. I know for the one that I ended up going to, it stood apart for me because on the day of the interview, all of the current PT students at the school actually attended our interview, and they greeted all of us and with high fives, and we all got to they made one of those big tunnels, where there was two people on each side, and you got to run through and high five them. And it was just really cute and welcoming, and it just felt like a family a family vibe and bond, and it just was a good feeling, and it made me feel very welcomed. And that's how I felt my entire 3 years that I went there. Where some other schools it just didn't feel right. It just wasn't right. And I've spoken with other therapists now that are like, darn, I wish I would have went to that school, and I didn't really have the best experience. But at the same time, if you do end up going to a school and you feel like it might be the wrong fit, just try to make the most of it. It is only 3 years and it goes fast. And there's always something that you can get out of it and turn it into a positive experience. So with that being said, I hope this video was helpful. And please feel free to subscribe to my channel, because I post videos on anything that you're going to need to know to help you get accepted into PT school and just try to make your life a little bit easier, because this is a stressful topic. But all right, I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.